All right, picture this. You're finally ready to buy that incredible villa you've been eyeing in Phuket. You know, the one with the infinity pool overlooking the ocean?
Hmm.
Maybe even a coconut tree or two for good measure.
Sounds idyllic.
Right. You've negotiated a fantastic price, the paperwork is all in order, and you're practically got the pen in hand to sign on the dotted line.
I'd say you're ready to become a Thai property owner.
Almost.
Yeah.
But before you pack your bags and book that one-way flight, there's this important thing to remember about buying property in Thailand.
Oh, what's that?
One word, taxes.
Ah, yes, those pesky things. Always seem to pop up at the worst time.
You can say that again. Specifically, we're talking about property transfer fees, which can be a real surprise for buyers if they aren't prepared.
It's true, they can put a real dent in your budget if you're not careful.
So let's break it down.
In Thailand, the property transfer fee is 2% of the property's appraised value.
2%. That doesn't sound too bad.
It can add up quickly. Think about it. If you're buying that $300,000 villa, that's an extra $6,000 just in transfer fees on top of that price.
Whoa, you're right. That is a significant chunk of change. Why are transfer fees so high in Thailand? Is it always like this?
Well, there are a few reasons for that. One is that Thailand places a very high value on land ownership, and these fees are a way for the government to generate revenue.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it's also a way for them to kind of control property speculation, which can be a problem in popular tourist destinations like, Phuket. But I should clarify that 2% figure, it's not necessarily set in stone.
Oh, really? So there's hope for us to pay less?
Well, it's actually a cap, so you might end up paying a bit less depending on various factors, but
Yeah.
honestly, it's always best to be prepared to pay the full 2%, just to be safe.
So 2% is a good benchmark for us to keep in mind. Now, who usually ends up paying this fee? Is it the buyer or the seller?
Officially, legally, it's supposed to be split 50-50 between the buyer and the seller. However, in reality, it's pretty common for the buyer to take on a larger chunk of the responsibility, especially if it's a buyer's market.
So like you're saying, if I really want that dream villa, I might need to be ready to negotiate on those fees.
Exactly. And that's where having an experienced real estate agent on your side can be a huge asset because they can really help make sure everyone's on the same page from the start, before any money changes hands or anything is signed.
That's good advice. You definitely don't want any financial surprises popping up after you've fallen head over heels for a place. But I have to ask, are these transfer fees the only financial hurdle we need to clear when we're talking about buying property in Thailand?
Well,
Oh, no. Don't tell me it gets worse.
while the 2% transfer fee is definitely the biggest cost you'll encounter, there are a few other expenses that might sneak up on you if you're not prepared.
All right, well, let's hear it. What else do we need to be ready for?
Let's stick with the example of that $300,000 villa. Makes it easier to wrap our heads around.
Okay, so our $300,000 villa. Tell me everything. So we've got our hypothetical $300,000 villa. We already know the transfer fee alone is a hefty $6,000. What else is hiding in the fine print?
Well, first up, we've got something called stamp duty.
Stamp duty. That sounds serious. Is that like a Thailand-specific thing?
Not at all, actually. Lots of countries have stamp duties.
Okay, so what is it exactly?
Basically, it's a tax on legal documents, and in the case of buying a property, that document would be the deed to your new villa.
So how much are we talking about for our $300,000 villa? How much is this stamp duty going to set us back?
Okay, so in Thailand, stamp duty is calculated based on, the property value and also whether it's a straight purchase or if it involves, say, a company.
Right. And
Assuming it's a pretty standard purchase, like in our example, you're probably looking at around $500 in stamp duty.
$500. Ouch.
Not ideal, but I've definitely heard worse. Okay, what else is there? All right, next on the list is something called specific business tax.
Specific business tax. Oh boy, that one sounds even scarier.
Don't worry too much about the name. This one might not even apply in our situation.
Okay, good. Tell me more about this tax, especially if it means potentially saving some money.
So basically, a specific business tax only really comes into play if the property is owned by a company and if selling that property is, considered part of that company's business activity.
So let me get this straight. If I'm just buying this villa as, a regular person, not through a company or anything, I could probably just ignore this specific business tax.
Exactly. Unless you're planning to run a business out of that beautiful villa with the infinity pool.
Definitely not. I'll be way too relaxed for that.
then yeah, we can pretty much cross specific business tax off our list for this particular purchase.
That's a relief. Okay, so we've covered stamp duty, we've covered specific business tax. What's the final cost we need to add to our calculation? What am I forgetting?
Last but not least, we have withholding tax.
Withholding tax.
This one's a little more complicated, I have to admit, and it really depends on how the actual sale of the property is structured.
Okay, I'm listening.
Basically, this tax is usually deducted from the final sale price, and then it's paid to the Thai government by the seller, not the buyer.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, while it's not a direct cost for me, it could still potentially impact my negotiation with the seller.
You got it. If withholding tax is involved, the seller might factor that into the final price they're asking. So it's definitely something to be aware of and discuss openly with your agent so that everyone understands, the potential tax implications and can negotiate fairly.
Wow, this is a lot to keep track of. It sounds like having an expert, a knowledgeable guide throughout this whole process is absolutely essential, wouldn't you say?
100%, yeah.
So for our listeners out there who are maybe starting to feel a little overwhelmed, what are some key things to keep in mind when you're choosing a Thai real estate agent? What really sets the pros apart from the rest? What should people be looking for?
It definitely sounds like finding that trustworthy, experienced real estate agent can make all the difference when you're trying to navigate, all these financial waters.
Yeah, for sure. Think of them as your advocate. They're there to protect you, make sure you don't get caught off guard by hidden costs or, unfavorable terms.
So important. Now, what are some red flags, maybe, that potential buyers should be looking out for when they're choosing an agent? What questions should people be asking to make sure they're making the right choice?
That's a great question, and it's something that I think a lot of people don't think to ask about enough. But first and foremost, you want an agent with a proven track record, someone who really knows the local market, especially the area where you're looking to buy.
Makes sense. Location, 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 right? Exactly. So don't be shy. Ask them about their experience with these property transfer fees we've been talking about and, other taxes. A good agent will be totally upfront about these costs right from the start, and they'll be able to explain everything super clearly in a way that you can understand.
So basically, transparency is key.
Absolutely. And another thing, always check if the agent is properly licensed and registered with the authorities in Thailand. It's just like an extra layer of protection for you as the buyer.
Right. So they're operating legitimately.
Precisely. And honestly, sometimes it's about more than just checking off boxes. Trust your gut. Go with an agent who's responsive, who communicates well, and who you really feel has your best interests at heart.
Couldn't agree more. It's all about building that trust, especially when you're making a big investment, overseas. And speaking of trust and expertise, we're lucky enough to have with us today an expert from Ocean Worldwide, a real estate agency based in Phuket. So for our listeners who are ready to take that leap, trade in their hypothetical dreams for, a real-life address in paradise, what sets Ocean Worldwide apart? What makes you guys different?
Well, at Ocean Worldwide, we really believe in being more than just, your average real estate agents. We like to think of ourselves as your trusted advisors. So we're there for you every step of the way, guiding you through the entire buying process and making sure that everything is transparent and that, you feel taken care of.
That's fantastic.
And our team, we have really deep roots in Phuket and, a really comprehensive understanding of the Thai property market and all those little intricacies that can be tricky. We're really committed to helping our clients find those green properties without falling into common traps or ending up with unexpected costs,
So whether someone's looking for a beachfront villa, a condo in the city, or even a peaceful retreat up in the mountains, you've got them covered.
Exactly. Whatever your Thai property dream is, we're here to help make it a reality.
I love it. It sounds like you offer such a personalized experience, and I think that's got to make a huge difference for buyers, especially when you're navigating an unfamiliar process, maybe even a different language.
Absolutely. We get it. It can feel overwhelming.
So for our listeners who are ready to connect with you guys at Ocean Worldwide, tap into all that expertise, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Well, we try to make it as easy as possible. Our website has a ton of great information on Thai real estate. We've got these detailed guides on property taxes, the legal processes, and even testimonials from our happy clients so you can get a sense of, what it's like to work with us.
Love it.
And of course, our contact information is right there on the website, so you can easily reach out to schedule a consultation. We're always thrilled to answer questions, provide some personalized advice, and just share our passion for, the exciting world of Thai real estate.
That's great to hear. And don't worry, listeners, we'll be sure to include a link to Ocean Worldwide's website in our show notes, so be sure to check that out if you want to learn more. So, as we start to wrap up our deep dive on Thai property transfer fees today, what's the key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
Honestly, I would say don't let these fees scare you off. Owning property in Thailand is a dream for so many people, and with, a bit of planning and the right guidance, it really is an achievable dream.
Absolutely.
The key is to go in with realistic expectations, make sure you've got all the information, and find yourself a local expert you trust who can hold your hand through the process. It might seem like a lot of work up front, but believe me, the peace of mind and the joy of owning a little piece of paradise, it's more than worth it.
I love that. Knowledge is power, right? And in this case, it's the key to unlocking your dream property, your own little slice of paradise. A huge thank you to Ocean Worldwide for joining us today and breaking down this honestly pretty complex topic. We've learned about those hidden costs that can pop up, we've explored ways to navigate the process, and most importantly, we've emphasized just how valuable it is to have that trusted expert on your side. And for our listeners, just remember, this deep dive was really just scratching the surface. What other things do you need to think about when buying property in Thailand, or any foreign country for that matter? Do your research. The culture, the legal stuff, what are the long-term implications? It's all part of the adventure. Until next time, happy exploring, everyone.